It's the Chronicle. For those of you who watch locally, Lower Merion Township is passionate about the environment. It strives to maintain our local beauty and nature. Today, I have a special guest, the Sustainability Manager of Lower Merion Township, Paloma Vila. So, Paloma, I'm so excited to have you. Would you please tell us a little bit about your role and what you do with your role?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm the sustainability manager for the township. So that means I help guide township operations to reduce our impact on the environment. And I also look for ways that the township government can help encourage or support our residents and businesses to reduce their impact as well.
That's a really important role. I'm sure it comes with a lot of responsibilities. And do you mind telling us a little bit about your background and how you moved into this position? Credentials, degrees, or anything? Yeah.
So I went to school here locally, undergrad at Temple University and graduate at Villanova. I have a master's of sustainable engineering and very passionate, personally about climate and the environment. So, the township created this position about 3 years ago, and I'm the first one to occupy the role, and I'm really excited to be here.
That is really exciting. I'm so glad that our local township actually has a sustainability office.
We're one of very few in the area, so we're very lucky that way.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so it's so great to get a little bit of your background, get to know you, who is the face of the office. Now, what do you specifically want to inform us about today?
Well, I know today's topic is all about clean energy, global warming, climate change, things like that. So I did want to elaborate a little bit on greenhouse gases. I think what a lot of people don't know is that greenhouse gases, when they're released into the atmosphere, can stay there for up to thousands of years. So think about that. The fossil fuels that our parents and grandparents and great-grandparents burned for energy created greenhouse gases that are still in the atmosphere. So just to look at numbers, since the 1800s, when we really started using fossil fuels more frequently in our lives, humankind has added about 2,400 gigatons of greenhouse gases to the atmosphere, and most of them are still there. And that has caused average global temperatures to increase about 1.35 degrees Celsius or 2.43 degrees Fahrenheit. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, 2 degrees, but we've seen that that's already spurred dramatic changes in the Earth's climate system, as you can see with more intense storms and things like that, droughts, heat waves.
So that's what they mean. That's what they mean when they say global warming. It's an increase in the average Earth temperature in a year?
Exactly. And it's usually compared to the Earth's temperature in the 1800s, because that's when the Industrial Revolution started, which is when we started burning fossil fuels more and releasing more greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. It's not so important to get, bogged down in this fraction of a decimal or that fraction of a decimal. What's really important to know is that we're really trying to keep that average global temperature down below this threshold so that we can avoid the catastrophic effects of climate change. It's not critical for the average person to know exactly what that threshold is. What is important is to know what you need to do in your everyday life to keep it from exceeding that threshold.
Yeah, I think that would be really interesting for all of us to kind of get to that part of what can we do. And I really appreciate your explanation. I think we're getting a little bit close to that limit. So what do we need? You're talking about what we can do on a daily basis. So what are some things we can do to limit the emissions we add to the load?
Yeah, so like you said, we're getting close to that limit because we're coming on the tail of what our ancestors already added to the atmosphere. There's not that much wiggle room left in that, what we call the carbon budget, right? There's only so many more greenhouse gases we can continue adding to the atmosphere before the global temperature reaches that threshold and we start seeing just really severe negative impacts. Okay. So now is really more critical than ever to significantly reduce the greenhouse gases that we're putting in the atmosphere. So here at the township in our operations, we're looking at how we can reduce our emissions And the good news is that it's easier now than ever. It's more affordable now than ever to do that, to switch to solar, to switch to electric equipment.
So, right, and we learned a little bit from Nancy Winkler's presentation about different clean energy home initiatives, and it looks like there are some incentives to help people transition to carbon-free energy and decarbonization in their homes. Is that correct?
Exactly. Yeah. Like I said, it's become more affordable than ever, and part of that is because there's these incentives and rebates and things like that that can help you pay for those changes. So I encourage people to go to energy.gov/save and the Rewiring America website to find in a really easy explanation of what all those incentives are and how you can get them. And a tax professional can help you with that as well, because a lot of them are based on taxes.
Ooh.
Yeah. It's always nice to get a little bit bigger check at tax time, right? So,
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then our own utility, Pico, actually offers really affordable energy assessments, which will tell you where you're wasting energy in your home and help you reduce the amount you use overall.
So I'm going to go off the grid for a moment for this question. I'm wondering if some of our viewers would be curious to know, well, if I'm plugging into the electric grid that's using some of these fossil fuels, is it really going to help if I get an electric car? So just out of curiosity, what do you have to say to that argument? Because I think, I'm curious as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's actually a question a lot of people have. And I think that for a long time, we were worried that it really wasn't worth it to have an electric car or an electric stove if that electricity is still coming from the grid. But actually, it's been shown that electrification in the home drastically reduces greenhouse gas emissions, even if you're using grid electricity. It's still one of the best things you can do to reduce the amount of carbon greenhouse gas emissions that you're putting into the environment.
So in general, using less energy means you're burning less fuel to make it and producing fewer emissions. Is that correct?
That's exactly right.
Okay. Even if we're using those electric panels, we're still reducing our emissions, our fuel emissions overall. Is that correct?
Yeah. So basically, there's a few reasons why that's the case. I think conceptually we can agree if you use less energy, you're burning less fuel to make it, and you're producing fewer emissions, right?
Yes.
Okay.
That makes sense.
So if you think about it, power plants, even if they're using fossil fuels to create the energy, they're using that fuel much more efficiently than your car or your furnace are, for instance. So using grid electricity, even if it comes from fossil fuels, it's still going to be more efficient and use less of that fuel overall, causing fewer emissions. So that's one thing. And then electric equipment like heat pumps, induction stoves, electric vehicles, they're inherently more efficient than their fossil fuel counterparts. So what does that mean? So for example, a gasoline vehicle, 80% of the fuel that's used in that vehicle that's pumped into that gas tank is actually wasted in terms of inefficiencies from heat created in the combustion process and things like that. So about 80% of that doesn't even get used to move the vehicle. Whereas for an electric vehicle, only about 11% of that gets wasted, and the rest is used directly for powering that vehicle.
Okay, so it is a really good idea for everyone to start moving towards the clean, efficient energy
electrification
of the whole home.
Yep.
Part of this series also discusses health issues. So doesn't decarbonization within the home help with air quality as well? That's, I think.
Yes, it absolutely does. So if you think about driving in a car, a regular gas car, what comes out of the back?
Oh, emissions.
Exactly.
Right.
So
Okay.
that's happening because you're burning the fuel in the internal combustion engine, and the product of that process is the emissions that come out of the tailpipe.
Okay.
So that right there, even just tailpipe emissions, that's a form of air pollution. Similarly, in your home, burning natural gas to light your stove or your furnace, that's releasing air pollution into your home. And then another thing is gas leaks are, something that everybody has to worry about. I highly encourage everyone to have carbon monoxide detectors in addition to fire detectors in their smoke detectors in their home. But that's something you don't have to worry about when you go all electric. You never have to worry about a gas leak again because you don't have gas in your home.
If we're thinking about health, indoor air quality in the home, what kind of potential is there for, if we keep burning fossil fuels, what kind of health problems are associated, if you know, with burning fossil fuels?
Yeah, so from what I've seen, the major areas of concern with this type of pollution is asthma rates go up. You see asthma rates go up in areas where there's a lot of car traffic, and that's due to the vehicle emissions. But you also see higher rates of asthma in homes with natural gas usage. The chemicals that are released are also tied to things like cancer, increased heart disease, and things like that. A lot of it, there's a lot going on in the environment, so it's often hard to attribute it to one thing, but more and more information is coming out about the negative health effects of these things. So if you can get it out of your house, even better for your health as well as for the environment.
So just as a little bit of a wrap up, you move to clean energy, you're helping the environment, you're helping yourself, you're helping your neighbors. Is there anything else you would like to add before we wrap up our discussion today?
Yeah, I think this conversation, we talked a lot of numbers. We talked about, some scary things, extreme weather. It can all get a little overwhelming and a little scary. And I think it's just important to just stick to the basics, right? Clean energy where you can get it, like solar and wind, and electrify whenever you can. You also don't need to get overwhelmed about doing it all at once. Right? It's expensive to change your heater in your home and your stove. So what I like to tell people is to just start with making a plan or a checklist. Go through your house, walk through, look at the systems and things that use fossil fuel, like your stove, your heater, your water heater, and just note, how old is this piece of equipment? What is the average lifespan of this piece of equipment? When might it be time to replace this piece of equipment?
Wow, thank you so much, Paloma. This is all really excellent information. So there you have it. If you want to help improve your health and the health of the environment, clean energy and decarbonization is the key. And there's lots of rebates and tax incentives to help you do it. So be sure to go to energy.gov/save or the Rewiring America website to see what's available and make a plan to transition your home. Thank you so much, Paloma.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.